Hi everyone, it's Nono here, and today we're gonna see another video of the sketch editing workflow on framing. We're gonna see how I reframe my drawings to publish online. So usually this is how I scan them, as I showed in the last video, and you can go watch that video on how to edit your sketches if you go to that link, so nono.ma/video/sketch editing, or simply go to the sketching playlist on my channel. I usually scan drawings like this. This is an example drawing that I will then edit like this one with the workflow that is on that video. And what I call reframing or framing is, you go from editing the drawing like this one into something that you can see there. That is a reframe version of it. I usually put it to be square when I publish online on my blog and also on Instagram and other platforms. And here's another example. You can see the text gets moved, rearranged, and then the entire background, at least as my preference, I leave it white. I know that other people prefer to leave the texture of the paper. It's important that if you like this content, you like the video, and let me know so I produce more of these tutorials. And also make sure to subscribe and click on the bell if you want to get notifications when I publish new videos or when I go live. All right, let's get started. So we have here an example sketch that I'm gonna edit today. So the other day I edited this on that previous tutorial, and what we want to do now is reframe it and reduce the size of this text in order to be able to publish it online. So I have this post story ready for my next Tuesday's post. As you can see, those get published like this one, and we don't have a sketch for this one yet. So the goal is that we're going to reframe it. So if you go to sketch.nono.ma, you can see everything that has been published so far. So there are, I don't know, around 60 something sketches here. And here I have a page where I have also the things that I have scheduled. So for instance, this sketch is scheduled to be published in the future with another story, and this one is for next Tuesday. All right, so let's get at it. Let's open, the first thing, let's just open our file in Photoshop. This is exactly the file that we ended up on the previous tutorial. And just for the purpose of saving this and keeping this version, we'll see how we store it in the future, but I'm going to save it as a different file. All right, so if you remember, I have here a high pass mask that adds detail into this image, and there are many things that I could do here. What I have been preferring to do lately, because I like to keep this sketch in full as it is, I'm just gonna keep the other version of the PSD file there, and I am going to reframe this to be formatted as a square. So because this high pass is separated from here right now, what we could do is actually just flatten the image and edit from there. So we don't really have all these editing capabilities in the original drawing that we're gonna do. But that's something that I don't like that much. So let's go ahead and try to see how we can do it so we actually keep that editing capability. You see, these are the filters that I've applied here. So that was the original drawing. And we have the high pass, we have the whites, the blacks go a bit darker, and then the colors, and then the mask to remove some dirty stuff from the drawing. All right, let's focus now on reframing. Let's actually just flatten the drawing so we just have one image for the entire thing. I'm going to cut these parts of the drawing separately. So I'm going to select the 3M, and I'm just going to make a new layer via cut. So as you see, that disappears from the background layer. Actually, well, let's roll back a bit and try to keep some of the things that we had there. There's one thing that interests me about this is this layer mask. So I'm just going to, before we flatten the drawing, I'm just going to keep this as a layer, and then I'm going to do what I was doing, just flattening. So I have that concept of where things are placed and how to center them properly. All right, so I'm going to move this here again. So layer via cut. We're going to do another layer via cut here. Another layer via cut. And two different ones for this. So one for this text and one for the date. All right. So now, you can see you can delete that safely. We can put a solid color here. We'll just make it white. And now, we have the option to select everything here. Let's name this thing. So this is date. This is text. This is sketch, and this is 3M. You see, I've just put names on each of the layers properly, so we can easily, when I right click here, I can select them, right? You can see that I can select these layers and then move them around. All right. One thing that is cool about this, once you have this thing selected here, I can press Command A and select the entire drawing, and then in this toolbar we can press this symbol for center alignment, and everything gets centered. I can move it to the left, to the right, and many other things, right? You could put everything at the top or things like that. We're just gonna do this right now. One thing that I like when I have this sort of drawing that is high resolution, but I want to resize the 3M, for instance, I make all these things smart objects. I have a separate video on smart objects, but the nice thing about smart objects is that if I press Command T to resize, I have the 100% there. And if you resize, you'll see that this layer, even though I've made it smaller, if I look at the size again, it's at 50%. So if I now take it back at 100, this is the original size and has the original pixels. It hasn't lost, hasn't been compressed, it hasn't lost quality. So we can safely downsize it and then later resize it if we want to make it bigger. All right, so let's get out of here and let me see. Okay, same with the text. We also turn it into a smart object, and the date as well. We can make it smaller. All right, so we have all these three things that we're gonna call label, and that's one layer here, and we have the diskette. So usually, as we were saying, I would make the canvas square. So we can, let me just put these labels in here. And we're just gonna make the frame square. So 1, 1, we'll just make it like that for now. And I usually want the sketch to have some padding around it, so some white color. So I'll just try to make it maybe even slightly bigger. We can make it smaller later. I have here the mask, at least for the sketch. I don't care that much about the 3M. And with this mask, right, if I hide everything else, this would be, if we centered the diskette, that would be where it would be. So I usually use that as a reference to know where to put the drawing, because as you can see, there are features here that make the centering function not center it properly. And yeah, so that would be the center. You're gonna see, we're gonna move it a bit later. And then we have our labels that we're gonna put below here. So we select the 3M, we get the text, and we get our date. And usually if this text is a bit off, you can see that if I select here, it's not completely straight. I may just allow myself and go double click into that layer and fix this slightly. So I could, I could just move a few things around in here to make it a bit more uniform. And this is what you gain if you want to post-process your drawings. I don't know if other people do this, but usually this is, the post-processing step on sketch editing is just one more part of the drawing process, and I think it's great that you have that freedom of not having to stress out that much whether what you're doing while you're sketching is pixel perfect. So we crop that. Just gonna make it layer there, and I click Command Save. So this saves a PSB file that is actually just a smart object, and now that's here. All right, I think I made it the other way around now, more or less. Okay, so now we recenter that once again. Something I usually like to do as well, so when you have text like this one on the date, you can make a blur effect. Let me see, I make this inside of here a smart object. I apply a blur effect that gets applied as a smart filter, just because I made this a smart object. And then we also apply a filter of levels. And then we can play with the values of each of these two to make the text a lot sharper. It looks like almost like vectorized if I put it 100%, right? So where this was like this, that is a bit, it has the grain of the paper, you might want to apply these filters to make it look like this, which, I like from time to time to do that. You see, now it looks a lot sharper. Let's actually do this on the text as well. So we just make this, we join these two layers, make a smart object, add a Gaussian blur, and now add a levels filter. Nice. So from this, we went to this. Right. If you want to compare, we can go to history, make a snapshot, and go back, make a snapshot. And we have these two steps here. You see, that's hand sketched, and that's like completely black. That's up to different tastes. I like how the watercolor looks in here, for instance. All right, so we're gonna keep going. So now we have this sketch, and what I usually do now, this is centered. I could save it like this, but what I do, this, instead of saving this like that, what I do is that I clip it on the height to be something like this, and you'll understand why. So I keep the width of the drawings, and if we go to the website, what you can see, for instance, is that this image here, so in this post, also has that proportion, and that's because I don't want it to have a lot of white margin on the top and the bottom, or white padding. So this is how this one is saved as well. But then there is some website code that makes it appear like this one, and also a code that you know, if this one is the last one, so there is a code with an online service with which I force that image to be square, right? So I could request this image to be different proportions just from the URL of the image as I want. So I don't, you know, I don't have to plan that ahead. I can just export like this one and then reformat it on the web. Okay, so we have this file, and now I would save a file that says here edit. Well, when I save these files that are edit, I usually want to save it now with 11 if that's the file that you're going to use later for printing or something, so you keep more quality, even though the size goes a bit up. And then I go to save export save for web, the legacy method. You get this panel here where I would select JPEG and quality 60, so there's a bit of compression, and then on the image size I said 2500. This is just to show it on the web. That's good for my needs, but other people might want to put it bigger or smaller. So here I just name with sketch. This is just my convention to upload it to the web, and then I save. So we can close this. We can look at the grid, so we still don't have the image. So I'm going to now put this here. So I'm going to put this diskette image here. I'm going to remove the copy here, and we have this image. So now for myself, what I do, my workflow is that I upload this to my site with that name. I then click in here, go to my post, set that as the image. You know, I have a value here that says when this was a sketch stat that we're going just to see from here is the 4th of October. So that's it. And now we are gonna save and just see that. So now this image shows up here. As I said, you know, you have the margins, but this works for this sort of layout, even though the image is formatted in that proportion. And then if we go to the grid, we're gonna see that this shows up here with the square frame, even though, you know, even though we had a like a rectangular horizontal frame before. Yeah, and here, you know, the one thing I'm just gonna do, I'm just going to move it a bit to the right, because perceptually it seems like the diskette is not properly centered. So I'm just gonna visually just move it a bit here, and I'm gonna resave. I do Command Option Shift S to get this panel of like save for web. Right. We save. Right, and I have to re-upload this image. Replace. One thing I usually do, so before we make sure that we have a preview of how the image is before we replace it, to be able to compare the two and not get crazy. And now there is a thing that I need to do, that is purge the image from the image server that I use. Right, so I purged this image. That takes a few minutes or seconds. So now if we upload and if we reload here, yeah, so that's been moved. So we had it here, now we had it here, and we're just gonna reload these things. To force reload images, you have to press Command-Shift-R. So now this reloads the new image, and same thing for here. So now, we have that there, and now we have that one there. I know it's almost unnoticeable, so you cannot even tell that much. But I just try to make the images visually aligned and centered as much as possible. And what I showed before, so if I now get this behind the address of the image, so I put that here, now I can get a perfectly square image for this one. That if we look at the presentation I had before, we had this image here, so we could get this image, style it with the same border, and now look and find our input scan drawing. So we go here, right? So there are many ways in which we could have edited this drawing. This is the way I chose to edit it. And yeah, so this was the result, or this is the result of what we've done today. So I've on the previous video we edited the sketch, and then on this one I've just focused on reformatting it to display it on the website as be able to put it on Instagram as a square image, or on your blog, or other platforms. Hey, it's Nono. This video is part of the sketch editing series. Please like this video if you'd like me to upload similar content, and to subscribe if you want to get notified when I upload new videos or when I go live. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.